You've seen this statue 1,000 times, on posters, in textbooks, on postcards, in memes. Michelangelo's David, for over 500 years, it's been called the most perfect sculpture ever carved by human hands. The ideal male form, flawless, except it isn't flawless. The head is too big. One hand is enormous, out of all proportion. The neck is too long. And if you look closely at the eyes, they don't even point in the same direction. By every rule of human anatomy, David is full of mistakes. But here's the thing, Michelangelo was arguably the greatest anatomist of his age. He dissected human corpses in secret for years. He knew the human body better than almost anyone alive. So the question isn't, how did he get it wrong? The question is, what if he didn't get it wrong at all? What if every single one of these flaws was put there on purpose, and we've been misunderstanding a genius for 5 centuries? Let's start with the stone itself, because before David was a masterpiece, he was a problem nobody wanted to touch. The year is 1501. In Florence, there's a gigantic block of marble that has been lying abandoned for nearly 40 years. Sculptors called it Il Gigante, the giant. Decades earlier, another artist had started carving it, botched it, and walked away, leaving a rough gouge in the marble. The block was considered ruined, too tall, too narrow, already damaged. Multiple masters looked at it and refused. You couldn't carve a proper figure from a flawed, shallow slab like that. Then a 26-year-old Michelangelo said he'd do it. For over 2 years, he worked almost obsessively, often sleeping in his workshop, barely eating, and out of that ruined block, he pulled one of the most famous images in human history. But the shape of the original damaged stone would quietly shape everything about David, including his so-called flaws. Now let's talk about that oversized right hand. If you look at David, his right hand, the one hanging at his side, is noticeably too large for his body. For centuries, people assumed this was either a mistake or clumsy proportion, but there's a detail hiding in plain sight. David was known by a nickname in Renaissance Florence, Manu Fortis, Latin for strong of hand. The oversized hand may be a deliberate symbol, a visual pun pointing directly to who this figure is. It's not a slip, it's a signature. Then there's the head, and the reason it might be the biggest clue of all. David's head and upper body are subtly too large compared to his legs. And for a long time, this was chalked up to error. But then researchers remembered something crucial. David was never meant to be seen at eye level. The statue was originally commissioned to stand high up on the roofline of Florence Cathedral, dozens of feet above the ground. And when you're looking up at a figure from far below, the upper body naturally appears smaller, and the head shrinks in your vision. So Michelangelo compensated. He enlarged the head and torso on purpose, so that from the intended viewing angle far below, the figure would look perfectly proportioned. He wasn't sculpting for someone standing in front of it, he was sculpting for someone standing beneath it. The error only became visible because the plan changed. When the finished statue turned out to be too heavy and too magnificent to haul onto a roof, the city decided to place it at ground level instead, in the main square of Florence. Suddenly, corrections designed for a bird's-eye view were being seen head-on, and what was engineered as an illusion started to look like a mistake. But the strangest detail of all is in his eyes. In 2005, researchers from Stanford University created a highly detailed digital model of David and studied his face from every angle, and they discovered something no one had noticed for 500 years. David is cross-eyed, not by accident. His left eye and right eye are aimed in slightly different directions. Look at the statue straight on, and it seems subtly off. But look at David only from his left side, and that profile is flawless. Look only from his right side, and that profile is flawless too. Michelangelo appears to have carved each half of the face to be perfect from its own side, sacrificing the straight-on view to make both profiles ideal. He essentially built two perfect faces into one head. From the front, the compromise shows. From the sides, the angles most people would actually approach the statue in its niche, it's perfect. Think about what that means. To do this, Michelangelo had to be thinking in 3 dimensions and multiple viewpoints simultaneously, planning how light and perspective would hit the marble from every direction. This isn't the work of someone making mistakes. This is someone controlling exactly what you see, from exactly where he wants you to see it. And that reframes everything. The long neck, the enlarged features, the tension in the pose. David isn't calm and victorious like earlier versions by other artists who showed him standing over Goliath's severed head. Michelangelo froze him in the moment before the fight. The furrowed brow, the tense neck, the alert eyes. This is a young man facing something far bigger than himself, gathering his nerve. The distortions heighten that feeling. They make him feel alive, coiled, human. So were these flaws, or were they the most sophisticated visual engineering of the entire Renaissance? Here's where we have to be honest. Not every irregularity in David is necessarily intentional. The original damage block genuinely limited Michelangelo in places. The statue is strangely thin when viewed from the side, almost certainly because the ruined slab simply wasn't deep enough. Some proportions may be compromises forced by the stone, not artistic choices. Art historians still debate which imperfections were deliberate and which were unavoidable. But the pattern is hard to ignore. Again and again, the things that look like errors turn out to serve a purpose. The symbolic hand, the head sized for a rooftop, the eyes split into 2 perfect profiles. Michelangelo wasn't chasing dry anatomical accuracy. He was chasing something harder, a figure that would look perfect and feel alive from the exact positions people would stand. We tend to think perfect means mathematically correct. Michelangelo understood something deeper, that perfection isn't about matching a ruler. It's about the effect on the person looking. And to achieve that effect, sometimes you have to break the rules on purpose. For over 500 years, millions of people have stood in front of David and called him flawless without knowing why. And a smaller number have looked closely, spotted the oddities, and called him flawed. But the truth is stranger than both. The imperfections aren't the failures of the statue. They might be the whole reason it feels so impossibly alive. The next time you see that famous silhouette, look again at the hand, the head, the eyes. Because what generations dismissed as mistakes may actually be the fingerprints of a genius, hidden in plain sight, daring you to notice. If you want to see what other secrets the world's most famous masterpieces are hiding, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.